The crystal towers of Lyra's seventh burned with colors that had no names. Elder Mira pressed her pale hands against the observation dome's smooth surface and watched her world die. Below, the graceful spires that had taken her people 3,000 years to grow crumbled under the weight of plasma fire. The Drac machines moved through her city like metal insects, converting everything beautiful into gray industrial waste. "How many?" she asked without turning around. Science Council leader Vel consulted his datapad with shaking fingers. 17 worlds, 17 civilizations, all gone in 4 months. His voice carried the harmonics of deep grief that only the Altani could produce. The machines don't negotiate, they don't take prisoners, they just consume everything and move on. Mira felt the telepathic screams of her people echoing through the collective consciousness. The Altani had never known war. For 10,000 years they had lived in perfect harmony with their crystal cities, their floating gardens, their songs that could shape matter itself. Violence was so foreign to their nature that they didn't even have words for many weapons. "This evacuation ships," she asked, "destroyed before they cleared the atmosphere. The Drac learned our flight patterns after the first 3 worlds. They're not just conquering us, they're studying us, learning how we think." Vel's datapad showed the terrible mathematics of extinction. "We have perhaps 60 hours before their main force arrives." Another explosion rocked the tower. Through the crystal walls, Mira could see the mechanical soldiers advancing up the spiral pathways. Each one stood twice as tall as an Altani, their metal bodies designed for only one purpose. The Drac Empire had turned warfare into a science, and peaceful species were just problems to be solved. "Show me the archive data again," Mira said. Vel hesitated. "Elder, we've reviewed it 100 times. The records are incomplete, contradictory. We're not even sure they still exist. Show me." The holographic display flickered to life between them. Star charts rotated slowly, highlighting a distant spiral arm of the galaxy. A small yellow star with several planets, the third one blue, and green and wrapped in white clouds. The data scrolled past in the ancient script of the first explorers. Species designation, human. Homeworld, Earth. Classification, Death World inhabitants. Warning, extreme caution advised. This species evolved under constant threat conditions. Atmospheric composition includes reactive gases. Surface gravity exceeds galactic standard. Weather patterns include violent storms capable of destroying cities. Geological activity produces frequent catastrophic events. Vel paused the display. "The rest is worse, Elder. According to these records, they spent their entire evolutionary history fighting everything, including each other. The data suggests they had global wars involving millions of casualties. They developed weapons capable of sterilizing their own planet. Yet they survived," Mira said quietly. "The records indicate they not only survived but spread to multiple worlds within their system. They built stations in the void between planets. They terraformed dead rocks into garden worlds." Vel's voice carried a note of disbelief. All while fighting among themselves. Mira studied the rotating image of Earth. Such a small world to produce such creatures. The data files spoke of beings who treated violence like other species treated art. They had names for 10,000 different ways to fight. They wrote poetry about war and sang songs about battles that happened centuries before their current generation was born. "The psychological profile makes no sense," Vel continued. "They appear to form deep emotional bonds with their offspring, their mates, even unrelated members of their species. Yet the same individuals who will die to protect their young will also march into certain death for abstract concepts like honor or freedom. The analysis suggests they're simultaneously the most aggressive and most protective species ever encountered." Because they understand loss, Mira realized. They know what it means to have something precious destroyed. The tower shook again. This time, they could hear the sound of metal feet on crystal stairs. The Drac had reached the lower levels. "Elder, we need to evacuate to the deep shelters." "No." Mira turned from the window and walked to the communication console. Her fingers danced over controls that had never been used for anything but peaceful contact between worlds. We're going to send a message. To whom? Every other species in this sector is either dead or hiding. To the Death World. Mira began, entering coordinates into the system. To Earth. Vel stared at her in shock. Elder, first contact protocols require. Protocols are for times of peace. This is extinction. Mira's fingers flew over the controls. The communication array powered up with a deep harmonic hum that resonated through the crystal walls. We're going to tell them who we are, what's happening to us, and what we're willing to give in return for help. And what exactly are we willing to give creatures who wage war for sport? Mira looked at him with eyes that held the wisdom of centuries. Everything. Our technology, our art, our music, our knowledge of crystal growth and energy manipulation, our entire database of scientific achievement. Everything we are and everything we've learned. The communication system reached full power. Across the city, the few remaining Altani felt the harmonic pulse as their most powerful transmitter prepared to send a signal across half the galaxy. They may not even receive it, Vel said. They may not understand it. They may not care. Or, they may be exactly what legends say they are. Mira began recording her message, knowing she might be the last elder of her people to speak. A species that cannot ignore a cry for help, no matter who sends it. She spoke directly to the transmitter, her words carrying across the void toward a small blue world where creatures lived who had turned survival itself into an art form. To the warriors of Earth. We are the Altani of the Lyros system. We are dying. A machine empire called the Drac has destroyed 17 of our worlds in 4 months. They will reach our last stronghold in 3 days. We have no weapons. We have no soldiers. We have never fought a war because we never imagined anyone would want to destroy us simply for existing. We offer you everything we are. Our science, our art, our crystal cities, our energy technology, all of it. We offer it freely to anyone willing to help us survive. We do not know if you still exist. We do not know if you will hear this. We only know that our children are dying, and our legends speak of humans as the only species in the galaxy that fights not for conquest, but for each other. If you can hear this message, if you remember what it means to protect the innocent, please help us. We are running out of time. The message burst from Lyros 7 at faster than light speeds, carrying with it the desperate hope of an entire civilization. It would take days to reach Earth, and by then the Altani might all be dead. But Mira had read the ancient files carefully. If the legends were true, humans didn't just fight to win. They fought to make sure others could live in peace. And if there was any species in the galaxy that would cross impossible distances to save complete strangers, it would be the Death World creatures who had learned to love by learning to lose. The emergency session began at 3 a.m, Geneva time. President Riley had been pulled from her bed by the kind of phone call that changed history. Around the circular table in the Global Defense Council chamber sat the most powerful military minds on Earth, all of them trying to process the impossible. Play it again, General Torres said, rubbing his eyes. The holographic display flickered to life in the center of the room. The alien's face was hauntingly beautiful, with large eyes that seemed to hold infinite sadness and skin that caught light like polished stone. When she spoke, her voice carried harmonics that made everyone in the room feel a deep, inexplicable sorrow. Dr. Nova, Earth's leading xenobiology expert, had been studying the transmission for 6 hours. The linguistic analysis is complete. They're not lying. This is a genuine distress call from a species that has no concept of deception in communication. Their language doesn't even have words for military strategy or tactical advantage. Admiral Kane leaned forward. You're telling me these beings never developed warfare at all? It's more than that. Based on their physiological data and cultural references in the message, the Altani evolved on a world where cooperation was the only survival strategy. They appear to be partially telepathic, which would make lying or violent deception impossible in their society. Perfect victims, Torres muttered. Riley studied the star charts projected above the table. How far is their system? 47 light years, replied Dr. Webb. the head of astrophysics. With our current jump drive technology, we could reach them in approximately 18 days. Their message said they had 3 days, Kane pointed out grimly. The room fell silent. Everyone understood the mathematics of the situation. By the time Earth could mount any kind of response, the aliens would likely be dead. What about their technology? Riley asked. Dr. Nova consulted her tablet. Remarkable. Their crystal growth techniques could revolutionize our construction industry. Their energy manipulation abilities appear to exceed our current capabilities by orders of magnitude. They're offering us advances that would take our civilization centuries to develop on our own. In exchange for what exactly? Torres asked. They want us to fight a war against an empire that just destroyed 17 worlds? They want us to try, Riley said quietly. The question is, do we have the capability? All eyes turned to Admiral Kane. As head of the Solar Fleet, he commanded humanity's most advanced military forces, ships that had been built after the Martian Independence Wars designed with lessons learned from 3 centuries of human conflict. We have 43 ships capable of interstellar travel, Kane said. The newest are the Dreadnought-class vessels Fury, Vengeance, and Reaper. Each one carries fusion torpedoes, quantum disruption cannons, and defensive systems that can withstand direct asteroid impacts. Against how many enemy ships? Kane pulled up the tactical analysis. Based on the aliens' description, the Drak Empire uses overwhelming force tactics. We're looking at potentially hundreds or thousands of enemy vessels. The numbers were sobering. Humanity's entire interstellar fleet against an empire that consumed worlds. Dr. Nova cleared her throat. There's something else. I've been analyzing the Drak tactical patterns described in the message. They use what we would call total war doctrine, but in a very specific way. They appear to rely entirely on technological superiority and numerical advantage. Meaning they've never faced an enemy that uses guerrilla tactics, psychological warfare, or adaptive strategy. Every species they've encountered has either surrendered immediately or tried to fight them using conventional force-on-force tactics. Torres began to smile grimly. They've never fought humans. Exactly. Look at their attack patterns. Dr. Nova highlighted sections of the alien message. Direct assault, overwhelming firepower, straight-line advancement. It's efficient against peaceful civilizations, but it's also predictable. Riley stood up and walked to the window overlooking Lake Geneva. Dawn was breaking over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Somewhere out there, beyond the atmosphere, beyond the solar system, an entire species was about to die unless Earth acted. What would we need to mount a response? Kane was already pulling up deployment scenarios. I'd recommend a strike force built around our 3 newest dreadnoughts, support vessels for logistics and medical, marine contingents for boarding actions, our best pilots and our most experienced special forces operators. How many personnel total? 12,000. The best we have. Riley turned back to the room. And our chances? The silence stretched for long moments. Finally, Kane spoke. Madam President, if we're talking about conventional space combat against a superior force, our chances are minimal. But if we're talking about the kind of warfare humans specialize in, the kind where we use every advantage we can find or create. Go on. The Drak have been winning because they're fighting civilized species. We're not civilized when it comes to war. We're very, very good at it, and we're creative in ways that most species can't imagine. Torres nodded. Our entire military doctrine is based on fighting enemies who outnumber us, outgun us, or have superior technology. It's what we do. Dr. Webb spoke up from the back of the room. There's also the psychological factor. These Drak machines have been conquering species that don't understand violence. They've never faced an enemy that enjoys the challenge. Riley looked around the room at the faces of Earth's military leadership. These were people who had spent their careers preparing for threats that might never come. Now finally there was a war worth fighting. Dr. Nova, how certain are you that this message is genuine? Completely certain. The desperation is real. The offer of their entire technological database is real. They're not holding anything back. And if we save them? We gain allies who possess technology that could advance human civilization by centuries. More importantly, we establish Earth as a power in this region of the galaxy. Riley made her decision. Admiral Kane, you have authorization for Operation Lifeline. Deploy your strike force immediately. Rules of engagement are simple. Protect the innocent, eliminate the threat. Kane stood up. Yes, Madam President, how far are we authorized to go? Riley looked at him with the expression of someone who had just committed her species to interstellar war. Admiral, these machines have been committing genocide across 17 worlds. Show them why evolution made humans the apex predators of Earth. The meeting broke up quickly after that. Within hours, alarms were sounding at military bases across the solar system. The fleet began assembling at Titan Station while thousands of Marines, pilots, and specialists prepared for humanity's first interstellar war. Dr. Nova remained behind as the others filed out. Madam President, there's one more thing. The message contained detailed information about human legends and myths. These aliens have been studying us. They know exactly what they're asking for. Meaning, they're not just asking for help. They're asking for humanity to be exactly what our reputation suggests we are. Dr. Nova paused. The question is, are we ready to live up to that reputation? Riley looked out at the dawn sky where the first transport ships were already beginning their journey to the outer system. Doctor, we're about to find out if the rest of the galaxy is ready for us. 3 human ships materialized in the Lyros system just as the final Drac bombardment began. The massive alien fleet, over 300 vessels strong, had arranged themselves in perfect formation around the dying crystal world. Their strategy was simple and effective. Systematic destruction of every living thing on the planet's surface. Elder Mira felt the ships arrive before the sensors detected them. The Altani collective consciousness suddenly registered 3 points of incredible focused violence, like stars made of compressed rage. She had never felt anything like it. Unknown vessels, she managed to say into her communicator. This is Elder Mira of the Altani. We sent a distress signal but did not expect anyone to arrive so quickly. The response came immediately. The voice was calm, almost casual, with an undertone that made every Altani within telepathic range shiver. Elder Mira, this is Captain Rex of the Human Expeditionary Force. We received your message 18 days ago and came as fast as we could. I'm sorry we're late. Take your people to the deepest shelters you have and stay there until we're finished. Captain. Rex switched to a different frequency, one that reached every Drac ship in the system. His tone remained conversational, but now carried something that made the alien machines pause their bombardment. This is the human ship Fury to all Drac vessels. You have exactly 10 seconds to withdraw from this system. After that, we're going to demonstrate why natural selection made us persistence predators. The Drac response was immediate and overwhelming. Every ship in their fleet opened fire simultaneously, sending enough destructive energy toward the 3 human vessels to vaporize a moon. The display of raw firepower was magnificent and terrifying. The human ships were no longer there. Fury had vanished into the system's asteroid belt the moment Captain Rex finished speaking. Vengeance simply dropped below the orbital plane and disappeared behind the planet's largest moon. Reaper activated stealth systems that made it invisible to every sensor the Drac possessed. What followed was not a battle. It was a hunting lesson. Fury emerged from behind a large asteroid directly behind the Drac command ship. The human vessel was smaller than most of the alien fleet, but it moved with a precision that spoke of centuries of combat evolution. Its first shot wasn't aimed at the command ship's weapons or engines. It targeted the communications array. The Drac admiral suddenly found himself unable to coordinate his fleet. Before he could adapt, Fury had vanished again, reappearing on the far side of the formation. Another precise shot eliminated a second command vessel. Vengeance took a completely different approach. Instead of hiding, it launched every fighter it carried and then began broadcasting on all frequencies. The transmission was simple. Recordings from human military history. The Battle of Thermopylae. The Siege of Stalingrad, the Martian Independence, War, Images of humans fighting impossible odds and winning through sheer determination. The psychological effect on the Drac was immediate. These machines had conquered 17 civilizations, but they had never encountered an enemy that treated warfare as entertainment. The human fighter pilots weren't just attacking Drac ships. They were performing aerial maneuvers that served no tactical purpose except to show off. Commander Ash led her squadron in a pattern that spelled out, "Hello," in the debris field of destroyed Drac vessels. When the alien fleet tried to respond with coordinated fire, the human pilots scattered like startled birds, only to regroup moments later in an entirely different formation. But it was Reaper that truly demonstrated human creativity in warfare. The ship didn't attack the Drac fleet at all. Instead, it approached the largest enemy vessel and simply docked with it. The Drac had never encountered boarding actions. In their experience, space combat was conducted entirely with ship weapons. At long range, the concept of soldiers fighting inside an enemy vessel was foreign to them. Lieutenant Quinn led the boarding party through Reaper's airlocks and directly into the Drac ship's corridors. What they found were machines designed for space combat, not close-quarters fighting. The Drac soldiers were tall, heavily armored, and carried powerful energy weapons. They were also completely unprepared for humans with plasma cutters and improvised explosives. "Contact front," Quinn reported calmly, as his team engaged the first group of Drac soldiers. "They're big, they're tough, but they move like they've never been in a knife fight." The battle inside the ship lasted 20 minutes. When it was over, Lieutenant Quinn's voice came over the communications channel with the kind of satisfaction that only humans could project. "Captain, we've secured the Drac flagship. Their computer systems are surprisingly vulnerable to percussive maintenance. Also, their weapons are now targeting their own fleet." The tide of battle shifted completely in that moment. The Drac found themselves under attack by their own command ship, while human fighters harassed them from all angles, and fury continued, its precision strikes against key vessels. But the real turning point came when Captain Rex opened communications with the Drac admiral, who had somehow managed to regain partial control of his fleet. "This is Rex again. I want to make something clear. We didn't come here to conquer your empire or steal your technology. We came here because someone asked for help, and humans don't ignore distress calls. You can withdraw your forces now and this ends here, or you can keep fighting and we'll show you what happens when you threaten species under human protection." The Drac admiral's response was predictable. "You are 3 ships against hundreds. Your victory here is temporary. The Empire will send more forces." "Good," Rex replied, and now his voice carried something that made even the human crew members uncomfortable. "We were hoping you'd say that. You see, Admiral, this isn't our main fleet. This is just our rapid response team. And now that you've given us a reason, Earth is going to send the rest of our ships. I hope your empire is ready to meet 12,000 years of human military evolution." The battle continued for another 4 hours, but the outcome was never in doubt. The Drac had overwhelming numbers and superior technology, but they had never faced an enemy that treated warfare as both science and art. Every human tactical manual was based on the assumption that the enemy would outnumber and outgun human forces. The Drac were fighting their kind of war, but they were fighting it against specialists. When the last Drac ship fled the system, Elder Mira emerged from the deep shelters to find 3 human vessels in perfect formation above her world. The crystal cities were damaged but intact. Her people were alive. Captain Rex's final transmission was brief and professional. "Elder Mira, this is Captain Rex. The immediate threat has been neutralized. We're establishing orbital defense platforms and leaving a garrison force. I should warn you that more Drac ships will come, many more, but Earth has decided that this sector is now under human protection." Mira looked up at the alien ships that had just saved her entire civilization. They were smaller than the Drac vessels, less impressive in their design, but they moved with a confidence that spoke of species that had learned to win wars before they learned to make peace. "Captain Rex, how can we ever repay this debt?" The human's response carried what Mira would later learn was a distinctly human emotion: grim satisfaction mixed with genuine affection. "No debt, Elder. That's not how this works. You asked for help. We provided it. Now we're allies. That means your enemies are our enemies, and our enemies had better be ready for what that means. As the human ships took position around her world, Mira realized that the galaxy had just changed forever. The Drac Empire had spent centuries conquering peaceful species. Now they were going to learn what happened when they picked a fight with the children of Earth. 6 weeks after the battle, Elder Mira walked through the corridors of the human flagship Retribution and tried to understand what she was seeing. The ship buzzed with activity that seemed chaotic, but was clearly highly organized. Human crew members moved with purpose between stations where screens displayed tactical information that hurt her mind to look at. She found Captain Rex in what humans called the War Room, surrounded by holographic displays showing star charts, fleet movements, and threat assessments. He looked up when she entered, and she was struck again by how calm he appeared despite the enormous responsibility he carried. Elder Mira, how are the evacuation efforts progressing? Better than expected. Your people have helped us relocate 3 million Altani to the deep cavern cities. The crystal gardens are already beginning to regrow. She paused, watching the tactical displays. Captain, I need to understand something. Your victory here was remarkable, but you seem troubled rather than pleased. Rex gestured to the largest holographic display. It showed the local sector of the galaxy, with red indicators marking Drac-controlled systems. There were hundreds of them. This wasn't a victory, Elder, this was a skirmish. The force we defeated was a scouting fleet, maybe 1% of the Drac Empire's total military capability. Dr. Nova looked up from her analysis station. We've been studying the captured Drac technology for 6 weeks. Their database indicates they control over 40,000 worlds. They've been expanding unopposed for 8 centuries. Mira felt her telepathic abilities pick up the emotions radiating from the human crew. There was no fear, which surprised her. Instead, she sensed something like grim anticipation mixed with careful planning. Yet you don't seem concerned about these odds. Rex smiled, and Mira realized why other species found humans so unsettling. His expression carried genuine warmth alongside something predatory. Elder, let me explain something about human military doctrine. We've never fought a war where we outnumbered the enemy. Earth's entire military tradition is based on being outnumbered, outgunned, and somehow winning anyway. Lieutenant Brooke approached with a data pad. Captain, the defensive preparations are complete. Orbital platforms are online, and we've established supply caches throughout the asteroid belt. The Altani have been remarkably quick learners. This was true. Over the past weeks, Mira had watched her people adapt to concepts they had never needed before. They couldn't become warriors, but they could understand logistics, communications, and support systems. Young Altani worked alongside human engineers, learning to maintain defense platforms and coordinate supply runs. What's our intelligence on the next Drac response? Rex asked. Specialist Byte looked up from her computer interface. Long-range sensors detect a massive fleet movement. We're looking at approximately 2,000 ships heading this way. They should arrive in 4 days. The number hung in the air like a physical weight. 2,000 ships against the small human garrison fleet that now numbered only 12 vessels. Mira watched Rex process this information with the same calm expression he had shown when facing 300 ships. Assessment? Dr. Nova consulted her tactical analysis. The Drac are adapting. This fleet includes heavy assault ships, dedicated bombardment vessels, and what appear to be troop transports. They're planning to overwhelm our defenses through sheer mass. They're also bringing Admiral Steele, Byte added. According to intercepted communications, he's considered one of their most successful commanders. Over 200 worlds conquered. Rex nodded thoughtfully. Time to show them why experience matters more than numbers. Brooke, begin Phase 2 of the defensive preparations. Over the next several days, Mira watched the humans transform the Lyro system into something she had never imagined. They didn't just build defenses, they built traps. Automated mining platforms created fields of debris that looked natural but were actually carefully positioned obstacles. Sensor arrays that appeared to be communication satellites were actually targeting systems for hidden weapon platforms. But the most disturbing part was watching humans prepare for psychological warfare. Specialist Byte worked with a team of analysts to compile what she called cultural warfare packages. They studied human military history, selecting specific battles and tactics designed to demoralize an enemy. The Drak are machines, Byte explained to Mira during one of their planning sessions. But they're programmed by organic beings who understand concepts like fear and intimidation. We're going to teach them that fighting humans is different from fighting anyone else they've encountered. Commander Ash supervised the preparation of boarding teams. Humans practiced close-quarters combat in environments designed to simulate Drak ship interiors. Mira watched them train and realized that these people treated warfare like other species treated complex art forms. "Your people are preparing to board enemy ships again?" she asked Ash. "Elder, the Drak expect us to fight a conventional space battle, ship against ship, long-range weapons, numerical superiority determining the outcome. But humans don't fight conventional wars." "What do you fight?" Ash smiled with the same predatory warmth that seemed common among humans. "We fight the wars that everyone else thinks are impossible to win." On the third day, long-range sensors detected the approaching Drak fleet. Admiral Steele had brought overwhelming force, massive dreadnoughts, swarms of fighters, ships designed specifically for planetary bombardment. The fleet was so large it would take hours just to count all the vessels. Captain Rex called a final briefing for all senior personnel. The holographic display showed the approaching enemy fleet alongside the pathetically small human defensive force. "Ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow we're going to teach the galaxy something important. We're going to show them that humans don't just fight to win battles. We fight to make sure that peaceful species can continue to exist without fear." He paused, looking around the room at faces that showed determination rather than fear. "The Drak have never lost a war because they've never fought anyone who understands what warfare really means. They think it's about technology and numbers. We know it's about will, creativity, and the willingness to do whatever it takes to protect what matters." Elder Mira spoke up from her position as an observer. "Captain, your people are risking everything for aliens you barely know. Why?" Rex looked at her with an expression that carried the weight of human history. "Because that's what humans do, Elder. We fight monsters so that others don't have to." The briefing ended with detailed tactical assignments. As the humans prepared for a battle that would determine the fate of the entire sector, Mira realized that she was witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history. For the first time, a peaceful species had found protectors who were even more dangerous than the threats they faced. Admiral Steele was about to learn why the rest of the galaxy whispered about the Death World children with a mixture of fear and hope. Admiral Steele's flagship Dominator dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Lyra system, expecting to find the scattered remains of whatever primitive force had dared to interfere with Drak expansion. Instead, his sensors detected something that made no tactical sense. The system appeared empty except for a few small ships orbiting the alien world. There were no massive defense fleets, no fortress stations, no obvious military preparations, just a handful of vessels that barely registered on his threat assessment systems. "Analysis," he commanded his tactical officer. 12 ships total, Admiral, all smaller than our escort vessels. No significant defensive positions detected. The planet's population appears to have relocated to underground facilities. Steele studied the tactical display with the satisfaction of a machine that had solved 800 similar problems. "They're hiding underground and hoping we'll simply leave. Standard intimidation bombardment should be sufficient." What Steele didn't detect were the thousands of hidden sensors that had been tracking his fleet since the moment it arrived. What his analysis couldn't account for was that humans had been preparing for this battle since the day they learned about the Drak Empire. The first indication that something was wrong came when his communications officer reported massive data intrusion attempts across the fleet network. "Sir, we're detecting sophisticated cyber attacks. The enemy is attempting to breach our communication systems." Steele dismissed this with mechanical efficiency. "Implement standard countermeasures. Primitive species often attempt such desperate tactics." But Specialist Byte wasn't attempting to disable Drak systems. She was uploading carefully selected content from Earth's military archives directly into their command networks. Every Drak ship suddenly found its communication channels flooded with images from human warfare, the trenches of World War I, the beaches of Normandy, the orbital bombardment of the Mars Rebellion. The psychological impact was immediate. The Drac had never encountered an enemy that documented its own wars in such detail. The footage showed humans fighting with a combination of tactical brilliance and absolute brutality that defied their understanding of warfare. But the real message was simpler. These creatures had spent millennia fighting enemies exactly like the Drac Empire, and they had always found ways to win. "Sir," the communications officer reported with something approaching confusion, "the enemy fleet is transmitting on all frequencies." Captain Rex's voice filled every Drac ship simultaneously. "Admiral Steele, this is Captain Rex of the Human Defense Force. We know who you are. We've studied your tactical patterns, your fleet compositions, your standard operating procedures. You've conquered 200 worlds using the same strategies every time. Today, you're going to learn why that was a mistake." Steele activated his weapon systems with mechanical precision. "All ships open fire. Eliminate the human vessels." 2,000 Drac ships unleashed the kind of devastating firepower that had sterilized entire worlds. Energy beams and plasma torpedoes filled the space around the human fleet, with enough destructive force to crack a planet's crust. The human ships scattered like leaves in a hurricane, but not randomly. Each vessel moved according to a plan that had been rehearsed hundreds of times. They didn't retreat from the overwhelming firepower, they used it. Fury dove directly into the path of a massive plasma barrage, using the energy discharge to mask its approach to the Drac formation. Vengeance launched every fighter it carried, but instead of engaging enemy ships, the pilots began setting off explosions in the debris field that surrounded the planet. What Steele had dismissed as natural space debris was actually a carefully constructed maze of obstacles and hidden weapon platforms. As his fleet advanced toward the planet, they found themselves channeled into killing zones where concentrated fire from hidden positions could devastate entire squadrons. But the real surprise came when Reaper and its sister ships opened fire with weapons that no Drac scientist had ever imagined. Fusion torpedoes that burned through armor like paper. Quantum disruption cannons that caused enemy ships to simply cease existing. Kinetic projectiles accelerated to near light speed that punched through multiple targets. Impossible, Steele computed. Their technology level cannot support such weapons. Commander Ash's voice came over the communication channel with obvious satisfaction. "That's Earth technology, Admiral. We've been fighting wars for 12,000 years. We got very good at it." The human ships didn't just attack the Drac fleet. They dissected it. Every movement was calculated to exploit weaknesses in Drac formations. Every shot was aimed at critical systems that would cause maximum disruption. But Steele was a veteran of 2 centuries of warfare. He adapted quickly, reforming his fleet into tighter defensive formations and coordinating concentrated fire on individual human vessels. That was when Captain Rex revealed the true nature of human tactical thinking. "Phase 2, he announced calmly. Suddenly, the Drac fleet found itself under attack from within. The boarding parties that had been deployed during the initial confusion had spent the last hour systematically capturing key vessels. Lieutenant Quinn's voice came over the communication channels from inside a Drac battleship. "Admiral Steele, this is Lieutenant Quinn of the Human Marines. We've taken control of 17 of your ships. Their weapons are now targeting your own fleet." The Drac formation collapsed into chaos as their own vessels began firing on each other. But even this was just preparation for the final phase of the human battle plan. "Phase 3, Rex announced, and his voice now carried something that made even his own crew members shiver. The human fleet had been fighting defensively, using clever tactics and superior training to even the odds. Now, they went on the attack with a ferocity that shocked even the Altani observers. Fury emerged from the debris field like an avenging angel, its weapon systems cycling through targets with mechanical precision. But there was nothing mechanical about the way it fought. Every maneuver was calculated not just for tactical advantage but for psychological impact. Vengeance coordinated with the captured Drac ships to create overlapping fields of fire that trapped enemy squadrons in inescapable crossfires. The human fighters, instead of following standard attack patterns, began spelling out messages in the wreckage of destroyed ships. The message was simple. Earth remembers. Admiral Steele found his mighty fleet being systematically destroyed by an enemy that treated warfare like a combination of science, art, and personal vendetta. These humans didn't just fight to win, they fought to send a message. "All ships, retreat to minimum safe distance," Steele commanded. "We will bombard the planet from long range." "Negative," Rex replied immediately. "You're not leaving this system, Admiral. Not until we're finished teaching you about human military doctrine." That was when Steele realized that the human fleet had been hurting his ships throughout the entire battle. The surviving Drac vessels were now trapped in a specific region of space, surrounded by the debris field and the hidden weapon platforms. "You see, Admiral," Rex continued conversationally, "humans have a very specific approach to warfare. We don't just defeat our enemies. We make sure they understand exactly why they lost, so they can explain it to anyone else who might be thinking about threatening species under our protection." The final phase of the battle lasted only 30 minutes. When it was over, Admiral Steele found himself in command of fewer than 200 ships. The rest were either destroyed or under human control. Rex's final transmission was delivered with the calm professionalism that had characterized every human communication. "Admiral Steele, you came here with 2,000 ships to destroy a peaceful civilization. You're leaving with less than 200. When you return to your empire, you will deliver a message. The Lyro system and all surrounding sectors are now under Earth protection. Any further Drac aggression in this region will result in escalating responses." Steele's reply was predictable. "This defeat means nothing. The Empire controls 40,000 worlds. We will return with overwhelming force." "Good," Rex responded, and now his voice carried something that made the surviving Drac crews understand why their empire had never encountered anything like humanity. "We were hoping you'd say that. You see, Admiral, this wasn't our main fleet. This was just our rapid response force. Earth is already sending the rest of our ships. I hope your empire is ready to learn what happens when you declare war on a species that spent its entire evolutionary history fighting everything, including itself." As the shattered Drac fleet limped away from Lyro 7, Elder Mira stood on her rebuilt crystal tower and watched the human ships take defensive positions around her world. The small fleet that had just defeated an empire looked insignificant against the vastness of space, but she could feel the confidence radiating from every vessel. Captain Rex's final message to the Altani was brief. "Elder Mira, this sector is now safe. Earth has decided that peaceful species deserve protection from predators. That's what humans do. We fight monsters so others don't have to." In the depths of space, automated beacons began broadcasting a new message toward the core worlds of the galaxy. It was simple, direct, and carried the authority of a species that had just announced its presence to the universe in the most dramatic way possible. "This is humanity. We are now active in galactic affairs. Peaceful species seeking protection should contact Earth. Aggressive empires planning expansion should reconsider their priorities. We have 12,000 years of military experience and a very strong opinion about bullies. The galaxy would never be the same."